Okay, now the next thing I'm going to show you is the toolbar is split into sections. This section here, you can see there's a little line that goes across there. This section here is for all the selection tools. This section here is for all the drawing tools, right, like the pen and the shape. And what we're interested in at the moment is this section here, which are all the transform tools, right? So first of all, I've got to have something to transform. So I'll just draw a rectangle shape. There you go. Right? Now, if I click on this first tool, which is like a circle with a line going around, yep, you guessed it, it's the rotate tool. So I click near a corner and it rotates, right? So I can change the angle of this. However, see here, there's like a crosshair in the middle. If I adjust that point and click here, right, and then click, you can see that it's rotating from this point, right? So if I have it in the center, it will rotate centrally. If I put it on a corner, it rotates from that corner. Okay, so that's the rotate tool. Again, the rotate tool has another option, and this one is the reflect tool. So that basically creates a reflection. If you wanted it to be a complete opposite, you hold the shift key and you're guaranteed that it's a perfect mirror reflection. You know, the angle's not off a fraction, right? It would be snapping to the perfect reflection. Okay, that's the reflection tool. This next one, scale. Again, speaks for itself. I click and I drag and the scale is adjusted, right? If I hold the shift key, right, it keeps the proportions. However, you'll notice in my case here, I've got it set to the corner still, so I want it to scale to the center. So I click in the center, and therefore if I scale, it scales down to the center. Hold shift key and the proportion stays roughly the same. What I'll do is, because I'm confusing myself, I'll just draw another rectangle shape that way, right? Which is handy actually for this next tool. The next tool is the shear tool. Now what the shear tool does, if I click, you don't even have to click on the shape, that's the best part. You just click near the outside of the shape. As long as you've selected it with the black arrow, so you actually have the shape selected, then you can do all these effects. So the shear tool, if I to, will shear your shape, right? So just undo that, see it again. So I'm clicking near that top line and it's changing the angle of the top line. If again I move that point so as the bottom line, it's only going to adjust the top, so I can create like an oblique shape. Okay, but if I do it there, it's adjusting it from that whole point. Okay, just undo that, get that back to the beginning. The next one is the reshape tool, where, oop, missed. It's kind of okay, so the next one I want to show you down here is the warp tool, which basically, if I think of it as like pushing your finger into the shape, so I can push into any side of it and I warp the shape, right? So that's that, just let me undo that. The twirl tool, if I click and I hold the mouse down, it create a twirl for as long as I hold the mouse down. If you hold the mouse down forever, it'll twirl it forever. It's like twirling it around your finger, so you end up with some quite complicated parts. You can click only on the line, right? Only along the stroke line. And of course, at the moment it's going only in the one direction. Right, so that's quite a cool shape actually. Right, so let me undo those. Right. The next one in this option, the pucker tool, where it's similar to the warp, right? But you have a bit more control than the warp one. Right, so that's an interesting shape to play with. Ultimately, if you play about with these shapes, you get to learn what they do. This one being the bloat tool, if you click, it will bloat to that outside edge, so it's like pushing it out rather than pushing it in this time. Okay, so that's that. The next one, a scallop tool, kind of crunches the corners in, right, or out if you're on the outside line. So it does this really crazy effect to it. It looks like a torn map. Hang on, let me just undo that. The next one is the crystallize, right, and you can see that it gives it this crystallize effect. The longer I click and drag, the more it will do it. Right, so if I'm inside the shape and pushing out, it pushes the lines out. If I'm outside and I push in, it reverses it. Okay, so that's the crystallize tool. Again, let me undo that. Back to normal. And then the last one within this option is the wrinkle. Right, so it just wrinkles up the line. Right, which you can't see very well at the moment. Right, so you just got a wrinkly line. Okay, that is it for the main effects of what you can do to a shape. And the last one is the free transform tool, where you could transform it any direction, any angle. You know, again, same rules apply as the selection key. If you hold down shift, it keeps proportionally the same. And there you go. So those are the transform tools. It should, as standard, be set to rotate, scale, warp and free transform, but of course they all have other options that you can play with.